All righty. All right, so what we're going to do is what I wanted to talk about was something really relevant to what we do in this space, and that is events. We have some big problems to solve when it comes to some of these events today. We talked about this a little bit earlier. You go to an event, whether it's a ball game or music awards or whatever it might be, and you're sitting there and you want to see yourself on TV. So what are you doing? You're streaming it live, right? So you're watching it live, but you're also there because you want the experience. You're sending pictures to your friends. You're posting things on Facebook, Facebook Live. Everyone can see me. There's a lot of bandwidth that you need to account for, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Talking about what it takes to really make communications infrastructure work in event space, right, Avi?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the technology these days for events is so critical on even on the most basic level. Today, you have the cloud, you have social media, you have mobile apps, Wi-Fi. So many devices that connect that come in when one person comes in. It's essentially one person could be like 4 devices. So all that consumes bandwidth, and bandwidth is not the only problem because you have the bandwidth which is providing the actual access, and then you have the infrastructure internally, which is the access points and the portal pages and whatnot. All that can present problems or solutions for a major event.
Yeah.
Right.
And Steve mentioned that you've been doing this for over 20 years. I did comment. I said, you were like me, right? You started at 5, right?
I started too. Yeah.
And I'm still older than him. But how have things changed in the event venue space from a communication standpoint in the past 20 years? And I know that that's a long time, but we can hasten that up to, in the past 5 or 10 years even.
Yeah, events were back in the day, 98 essentially. I'm talking about 98, 99, or 2000 even, when when DSL came out. An event was local. It was a local thing, right? Bring in a group and all they do. You had to give maybe a dial-up connection or a DSL connection to the AV group. And they would download everything locally and then, do their thing and then stream it the next day or the next week or I don't know what. Today, that's not the case. And everybody wants more bandwidth. And, it's just like the enterprise world. I mean, everybody wants more and more and more speed, right? So before it was just a T1 or maybe a DS3 connection. And now you have gigs and gigs and gigs going into facilities. And then the gigs need to be backed up by more gigs. And then, so to see how much bandwidth is now consumed in one event, and we did an event last week that required 2 gigs of bandwidth. I ran an ISP of our Transbeam, and our core network with about 3,000 subscribers, business subscribers, didn't reach 600 megs at full peak. One event for a major client can peak at 900. And that's because the event is essentially what it is right now. It's the cloud. The event is the cloud. So right here, I mean, you're only maybe 20 people here, but there can be, like 1,000 people out there, and they're both coming in and out. It depends on the event itself. But to see that change and social media kicking into that and again sucking that bandwidth and being a part of the event, it's a different ballgame, completely.
So definitely requirements have changed. What about the customer experience and the expectations for the service that you're delivering? How has that evolved or changed, or has it?
Well, yeah, definitely it has, because now the expectation is just like I would compare it to voice. I mean, you pick up the phone and you can hear a dial tone. There's zero tolerance for no dial tone, right? And if the call drops, what is that? Why? How did that happen? That's not what we're used to seeing. So the expectation for clients is the technology, that the cloud is always there. I mean, think about the kids that are walking around and always connected. If they're not connected for a second, what just happened? So so the expectation is there's zero tolerance, because voice is actually a big part of events too these days, because now more and more events, more of the voice technology is moving towards the towards the cloud, right? Everything is hosted. So zero, zero, zero tolerance. Unfortunately, technology is something that's expected these days, and it's always expected to work. There's zero tolerance for technology that does not work. So that's...
No, that makes perfect sense. And so, can you do this all on your own? I mean, is this something that, you know, as GTT, that you need to and should be and could do without partners, or is there a way, or how do you work with partners if that's an opportunity?
I think to create the perfect experience and to design the perfect event or successful event, not perfect, successful event, is to essentially to bring together partnerships. You can't do this on your own. At Transbeam and now at GTT, which I have even a better footprint and more capacity and more leverage. You know, it takes almost every single part of the OSI model to build an event. If you think about it, if you have to bring in fiber to the building, on that layer, to roll out Ethernet or fiber cables, and then portals, which is hardware and software, access points, HTML design for portal access and login information. So it takes a lot of vendors to work together to build an event. It's not just, okay, how much bandwidth do you have, or how many access points do you have? And then you have the support on site, which is absolutely key, because you can put in about $100,000 in labor, I don't know what, configuration into an event, and then you have, you know, the high-powered players, which come in with 4 devices, and they can't connect. Yeah. Because Apple doesn't have some kind of software updated or whatnot, so then the event just went south. Mm-hmm. And you spent a hell of a lot of money on it. So feet on the ground, you know, support is absolutely key, no matter how the technology evolves, no matter how much money you put on in an event. But partnership is absolutely key. You have to work together and communicate with all vendors and make sure that you have everything bundled into one solid infrastructure.
So I'm gonna throw you a curveball if I could. 20 years in doing events. And the thing about events is that it's a short term, right? It could be hours, you know? Mm-hmm. And we know that wiring a building or a venue takes tens or if not hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes to do, to only use it sporadically. What's a war story of your experience that you've had, something that you had to overcome that became successful? But it was adversarial as you were approaching that project?
War stories, oh, wow. So when I specifically and my team, and you know, I have Irina here that's been working with me for about 10 years. When we design an event, and especially the high profile events, there's, like I said, there's zero tolerance. So when you bring in a connection, or when you design the network, I always have to have in mind a backup type of solution or scenario. If the wired connection didn't work, if the access point goes down, if the gig circuit goes down. So the war story that I have is essentially, it's a simple one. It's a simple one where a gig connection went down in a high-profile event where we had to reroute all the IPs through BGP to another point-to-point connection that was on another rooftop. And I think we probably had about a 20-second delay on that, which could have cost us, you know, it could have been if we didn't plan this in advance, if we didn't have that type of backup solution, I think the event would have been down completely, hard down. Wow. And you have to realize that event organizers do not want to spend a lot on technology. Unfortunately, the margins are shrinking across the board with all of the solutions. So event technology, just like I said, I mean, it's a given, it's always there, but it costs money. So to put 2 circuits in place, to put 2 hard wires instead of 1, to put 10 access points instead of 5, you know, that's something you need to consider when designing and having, you know, the budgets in place for an event. So for us at GTT and at Transbeam, it was always a concern, and it's something that you know, all you need is one event to fail, mm-hmm. and then it's over. It's a reputation. So And that would be like my poor story.
It's the same in event planning and pulling off something like this. You got to have a plan B, and you know, if one event doesn't succeed, then you know it's the perspective and it's the experience, and that's what sticks with you for sure. Before I open it up to questions, is there one thing that you want to share with us all about the event venue space in regards to communications, and how what do you see changing or needing to change as we move forward, especially with the proliferation and densification that we've been talking about today?
I think you know, I go out there when I speak to my prospective clients, and you know, our clients are essentially new venues, just like Convene right here. Venues and show managers and producers. I think that understanding that there are a lot of elements to an event on the technology side is something that isn't discussed. I mean, you would go to the majority of the show managers and producers that actually are hired to organize the event, and they don't know the technology aspect of it. They go to one provider and say, "Well, we need this." So, you know, I would really like to, you know, put the word out there and educate a lot of the show managers, a lot of the venues, the venue owners, about the infrastructure, how important it is, how security is even key. You know, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So more time to design it, more time to implement it, and definitely a little bit more of a budget.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about that budget. Any questions from our audience here before we move into our last panel? 5 of them, none of them. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for. I mean, you know, we can't talk about I'm sure some of the events that you do, but thank you, because we all experience what you do on our end as well, and thanks for that opportunity to see things and enjoy them.
It's definitely a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you once again to Avi and Ilissa. These are things that we really don't think about all that often, is we show up in a place like this and we just expect it to work. Everybody takes out their devices, and if it doesn't work, we get angry. If it does work, well, that's just par for the course. We expected it. You said it exactly right. It costs money, and it takes a lot of planning. So thank you both. Great insight. We so appreciate it. Thank you. And again, thanks to all of you.